And it becometh him that seeketh that shelter to abide within the sanctuary of thy protection and the stronghold of thy defense. Illumine my inner being, O my Lord, with the splendors of the day spring of thy revelation, even as thou didst illumine my outer being with the morning light of thy favor. Good morning, everyone. One moment, please. I'm having a little issue with our little Facebook stream here. One moment, please. For some reason, if I keep talking, we're having a problem starting our live broadcast through Facebook, and I have no idea as to why, but it's still struggling with that. It looks like it's not going to happen right now. Maybe I can check I'm sorry, I keep forgetting I have to speak through the mic for the Zoom folks. But yeah, we're having some problems with our Facebook feed there. I say we, but today I'm the only one here. I'd like to say good morning to Janet and Adam and Farah and hey there, Andy and Jeremiah and Cambiz. And I know we always say hello to the to the Facebook people, but for some reason that isn't working. Apparently, I'm having some internet issues here, which seem to have happened several times in the last few days. So, hey, what are you going to do? We got to do the best we can, but still, we got to do the best we can for the people that are here. So, one moment, please. And as you can see, that Daryl isn't with us today. Sometimes when that happens, it's because he's having, a little health issue or whatever. That is not the case this time. This time, someone in my home is COVID positive, and we just felt it was best that he not come over because of that. And it's my daughter. She's generally fine, having some mild symptoms, but we just figured, let's keep it safe. Now we're going to go ahead and start with a prayer. And this is a prayer for aid to serve the cause. Oh God, who art the author of all manifestations, the source of all sources, the fountainhead of all revelations, and the wellspring of all lights. I testify that by thy name the heaven of understanding hath been adorned, and the ocean of utterance hath surged, and the dispensations of thy providence have been promulgated unto the followers of all religions. I beseech thee so to enrich me as to dispense with all save thee, and to be made independent of anyone except thyself. Rain down then upon me out of the clouds of thy bounty that which shall profit me in every world of thy worlds. Assist me then through thy strengthening grace, so to serve thy cause amidst thy servants, that I may show forth what will cause me to be remembered as long as thine own kingdom endureth, and thy dominion will last. This is thy servant, O my Lord, who with his whole being hath turned unto the horizon of thy bounty, and the ocean of thy grace, and the heaven of thy gifts. Do with me then as becometh thy majesty and thy glory, and thy bounteousness and thy grace. Thou in truth art the God of strength and power, who art meet to answer them that pray thee. There is no God save thee, the all-knowing, the all-wise. And this is a prayer from Prayers and Meditations by Baha'u'llah. Now, I chose that prayer for a particular reason. I want to point that out. And the main reason is because given what we're going to be reading today, it fits in there as far as serving the cause. Now, as you know, in our last, we've been reading. I always hold it up for the Facebook folks, but they can't see it. So, but we've been reading from Advent of Divine Justice by Shogi Affindi. And a little personal note, in reading this book, I have gone from having some reservations about reading it to being an enthusiastic supporter of reading this book. I feel like every Baha'i who has the capability to read should read this book. And even if you are simply a friend of the faith or you're not Baha'i, this is again, it's a letter from Shogi Affindi that was written in 1938, the guardian of the cause, who wrote this very lengthy letter, treatise, to the North American Baha'is. And so that's what we've been reading about for the last, I don't know, weeks, months. And we will continue. And anyone who wants to jump in and make a little note or a point, I always welcome that. Rarely does it happen, but I always welcome it. Now, as I was going over preparing, shall I say, my first thought was, we've come, quite a ways. We read quite a bit about this. It would be good to have a review. Well, as it turns out, Shogi Affindi was way ahead of me. In fact, he starts this next section with a brief review of the points that he has already covered. And I don't know what edition you may have. If you have the book that looks like this, we're beginning on page 65, paragraph 63. And in the table of contents, these sections actually have, they've given them names, even though they don't have them as subtitles within the book. And so I just thought I should share that this is the beginning of a section that is called Call for the Fulfillment of the Material Aspect of America's Task, excuse me, upon which depends future successes. And he starts out with the challenge of the temple. But first, let's go through that brief review. Shogi Affindi says, "Dearly beloved friends, I have attempted in the beginning of these pages to convey an idea of the glorious opportunities as well as the tremendous responsibilities which, as a result of the persecution of the far-flung faith of Baha'u'llah, now face the community of the American believers at so critical a stage in the formative period of their faith, and in so crucial an epoch in the world's history." Some would say epoch, I say epoch. "In so crucial an epoch in the world's history." And now he gets into the 4 points that he has covered. Well, that's the first point. "I have dwelt sufficiently upon the character of the mission which, in a not too distant future, that community must, through the impelling force of circumstances, arise and carry out." He's covered the things that this community needs to do. He continues, "I have uttered the warning which I felt would be necessary to a clearer understanding and a better discharge of the tasks lying ahead of it being that mission. I have set forth and stressed, as far as it was in my power, those exalted and dynamic virtues, those lofty standards, which, difficult as they are to attain, constitute nonetheless the essential requirements for the success of those tasks." So he covers the main, again, reminds us of the main things that he's covered. And so if you recall, if you've been with us in past weeks, we talked about the importance of, having a virtuous character, and even keeping that in mind in our selection of the leaders that guide us in the faith. And also the importance of getting rid of prejudice, who Shogi Affindi called the most challenging issue here in the United States specifically. He goes on, a word I believe should now be said in connection with the material aspect of their immediate task, upon the termination of which, at its appointed time, must depend not only the unfoldment of the subsequent stages in the divine plan envisaged by Abdu'l-Baha, but also the acquisition of those capacities which will qualify them to discharge in the fullness of time the duties and responsibilities demanded by that greater mission, which it is their privilege to perform. And yes, I emphasized the word privilege for a reason. Shogi Affindi is pointing out that to be a part of this cause and to be a part of the great undertaking of sharing this faith and teaching this faith, it is a privilege to undertake that task. Now, he goes on to talk about, before we get to this next paragraph, even though I'm sure the people in the Zoom are aware of this, from the early days of the faith, especially the early days of the guardian guiding the faith, there has been a series of plans. At this very moment, we, Baha'is around the world, have begun a new plan. It is a plan that will span for 9 years. It is called, very simply, the 9-year plan. Well, and these are always teaching plans and plans to how, about how we can further the faith and share the faith with others and what should be our priorities over the time of whatever the plan is. In certain ways, of course, the priorities stay the same, but the ways that and the goals, the specific goals that are to be reached and the methods of reaching those goals might change from plan to plan. So in this next paragraph, he refers to the 7-year plan, which was in force at that particular time, which was in process at that particular time or in progress at that time. The 7-year plan, with its twofold aspects of temple ornamentation and extension of teaching activity embracing both the Northern and Southern American continents, is now well advanced into its 2nd year and offers to anyone who has observed its progress in recent months signs that are extremely heartening and which augur well for the attainment of its objectives within the allotted time. I have a little confession to make. When I saw the word augur, I had to go look it up. I'd seen the word many times, but wasn't sure about the context. In other words, this kind of predicts, the word simply means to predict or at least to portend or indicate the possibility of something good or something maybe not so good. In this case, it's a good thing. Okay. Again, and offers to anyone who has observed its progress, it being the 7-year plan again, who has observed its progress in recent months, signs that are extremely heartening and which augur well for the attainment of its objectives within the allotted time. That allotted time, of course, being 7 years. The successive steps designed to facilitate and covering the entire field of the work to be achieved in connection with the exterior ornamentation of the temple have for the most part been taken. We'll talk about the temple shortly. The final phase, which is to mark the triumphant conclusion of a 30-year-old enterprise, has at long last been entered. The initial contract connected with the first and main story of that historic edifice has been signed. The fund associated with the beloved name of the greatest holy leaf has been launched. The uninterrupted continuation to its very end of so laudable an enterprise is now assured. The poignant memories of one whose heart so greatly rejoiced at the rearing of the superstructure of this sacred house will so energize the final exertions required to complete it as to dissipate any doubt that may yet linger in any mind as to the capacity of its builders to worthily consummate their task. So what Shogi Affindi is talking about here basically is the building of the temple coming to its, I guess, its final stage. And again, I'd look at Darrell right now and I would ask him some questions if he were here. But anyone who wants to kind of share one or two statements about that, I'd really appreciate that. If maybe you don't feel it's necessary, but I would appreciate it, because this was that time again when the progress of leading up to the, I'm assuming, the opening of the temple and so forth was very much, or the process was very much in progress. To continue, and he points out something interesting about the temple and the importance of the temple, but he puts it in the right perspective. He says, the teaching aspect of the plan must now be pondered. Its challenge must be met, and its requirements studied, weighed, and fulfilled. Remember, that's what we're talking about, teaching. Superb and irresistible as is the beauty of the first Mashrikal Ashkar of the West, majestic as are its dimensions, unique as is its architecture, and priceless as are the ideals and the aspirations which it symbolizes, it should be regarded at the present time as no more than an instrument for a more effective propagation of the cause and a wider diffusion of its teachings. If you noticed, we use that term Mashrikal Ashkar, which is the term that is used to used to refer to all major Baha'i houses of worship. And at this time, at that particular time, the Baha'i Temple, which is located in Wilmette, Illinois. You can go visit it. It is an amazing structure. You don't have, I mean, it would be great for anyone who has visited or can visit it, but you can Google it, okay? And you'll see that there is this beautiful, beautiful building in, again, Wilmette, Illinois. And, but he points out that it should be viewed in the same light as the administrative institutions of the faith. It should be, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. It should be regarded as no more than an instrument for a more effective propagation of the cause and a wider diffusion of its teachings. In this respect, he goes on, it should be viewed in the same light as the administrative institutions of the faith, which are designed as vehicles for the proper dissemination of its ideals, its tenets, and its verities. For anyone who doesn't know, I teach speech, public speaking, and some other communication. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because one of the things that we talk about is the use of visual aids to make your message more effective. And in my own mind, my own way of thinking, Shogi Affindi is basically pointing out, this is a visual aid for your teaching efforts. It doesn't take the place of your teaching efforts. You need to keep it in the right perspective. It is only a part of the greater message that you are trying to share. It should be viewed in the same light as the administrative institutions of the faith, which are designed as vehicles for the proper dissemination of its ideals, its tenets, and its verities. He goes on. It is therefore to the teaching requirements of the 7-year plan that the community of the American believers must henceforth direct their careful and sustained attention. Here I go. I'm going to flip that sentence around because I feel it might be a little easier to understand for someone who might be hearing this for the first time. The community of the American believers must henceforth direct their careful and sustained attention to the teaching requirements of the 7-year plan. To the teaching requirements of the 7-year plan. The entire community must as one man arise to fulfill them. We're supposed to be working together. The entire community must as one man arise to fulfill them. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the next part of this paragraph is huge. It's all huge, but it's significant. To teach the cause of God, to proclaim its truths, to defend its interests, to demonstrate by words as well as by deeds its indispensability, its potency, and universality should at no time be regarded as the exclusive concern or sole privilege of the Baha'i administrative institutions, be they assemblies or committees. Uh-oh. So we can't just sit on our haunches, I guess, and expect committees and organizations to do this job, to teach the cause of God, to proclaim its truths, to defend its interests, to demonstrate by words as well as by deeds is, and he says three things. He's telling us it's indispensable, it's potent, and it's universal. To demonstrate by words as well as by deeds is its indispensability, its potency, and universality should at no time be regarded as the exclusive concern or sole privilege, again, privilege, of Baha'i administrative institutions, be they assemblies or committees. And in the next part of this paragraph, he takes away whatever may be our excuses for not teaching. Listen to what he says. All must participate. All must participate, however humble their origin, however limited their experience, however restricted their means, however deficient their education, however pressing their cares and preoccupations, however unfavorable the environment in which they live. I don't know about you, but I could check off a couple of those things at least, maybe even more, as reasons that I could use as an excuse not to teach the faith. But he's taken those excuses away. All must participate, however humble their origin, however limited their experience, however restricted their means, however deficient their education, however pressing their cares and preoccupations, however unfavorable the environment in which they live. And then he quotes Baha'u'llah. God, Baha'u'llah himself, has unmistakably revealed, hath prescribed unto everyone the duty of teaching his cause. Say, he further has written, teach ye the cause of God, O people of Baha, for God hath prescribed unto everyone the duty of proclaiming his message, and regardeth it as the most meritorious of all deeds. So, for anyone who wonders, why are there no Baha'i ministers? It's not that no one is doing the job of teaching. We all are doing the job of teaching this faith. There is not some set aside class of people who has been given that task. The task is given to all of us. He continues, a high and exalted position in the ranks of the community. Oh, wow. Let me start that again. A high and exalted position in the ranks of the community, conferring as it does on its holder certain privileges and prerogatives, no doubt invests him with a responsibility that he cannot honorably shirk in his duty to teach and promote the faith of God. Sort of like one of those lines from a movie, to him with great power comes also great responsibility, something along those lines. I'm sure I'm ruining that quote. It may at times, though not invariably, create greater opportunities. Let me go back, because he's pointing out, if you are someone that's in a high and exalted position in the ranks of the community, yeah, it gives you certain privileges and prerogatives. He says it may at times, though not invariably, create greater opportunities and furnish better facilities to spread the knowledge of that faith and to win supporters to its institutions. It does not, however, under any circumstances, necessarily carry with it the power of exercising greater influence on the minds and hearts of those to whom that faith is presented. So yeah, you still have the responsibility of teaching that faith, but just because you have a high position doesn't mean you're going to be any more effective. It doesn't necessarily carry, it does not, however, under any circumstances, necessarily carry with it the power of exercising greater influences on the minds and hearts of those to whom that faith is presented. How often? And the early history of the faith in the land of its birth offers many a striking testimony. How often have the lowliest adherents of the faith, unschooled and utterly inexperienced, and with no standing whatsoever, and in some cases devoid of intelligence, been capable of winning victories for their cause, before which the most brilliant achievements of the learned, the wise, and the experienced have paled. So he's saying there's no automatic connection between position and the effects of your attempts of teaching this faith. He then goes on and quotes Abdul-Baha, who refers to Peter, in the days of Christ. Peter, Abdul-Baha has testified, according to the history of the church, was also incapable of keeping count of the days of the week. Oh, God. I'm going to read that again because that's quite a statement. Peter, Abdul-Baha has testified, according to the history of the church, was also incapable of keeping count of the days of the week. And I got to tell you, while I'm reading that, I'm thinking, well, God, that means there's hope for me. Whenever he decided to go fishing, Peter would tie up his weekly food into 7 parcels. And every day, he would eat one of them. And when he had reached the 7th, he would know that the Sabbath had arrived, and thereupon would observe it. If the Son of Man, this is getting back, Shogi Affindi now is speaking. If the Son of Man was capable of infusing into apparently so crude and helpless an instrument such potency as to cause, in the words of Baha'u'llah, the mysteries of wisdom and of utterance to flow out of his mouth, and to exalt him above the rest of the disciples, and render him fit to become his successor and the founder of his church, how much more can the Father, who is Baha'u'llah, empower the most puny and significant among his followers to achieve, for the execution of his purpose, such wonders as would dwarf the mightiest achievements of even the first apostle of Jesus Christ? So again, this is saying, I'm trying to expound on what's there. I think it's pretty clear. Getting back, he's quoting Abdul-Baha again. Let me check the time here. Okay. The Bab, Abdul-Baha, moreover, has written, hath said, should a tiny ant desire in this day to be possessed of such power as to be able to unravel the abstrusest and most bewildering passages of the Quran, its wish will no doubt be fulfilled, inasmuch as the mystery of eternal might vibrates within the innermost being of all created things. If so helpless a creature can be endowed with so subtle a capacity, how much more efficacious must be the power released through the liberal effusions of the grace of Baha'u'llah. So again, to get back to that earlier portion that we read, first and foremost, we all have the task and share the task of teaching this faith and propagating this faith around the globe. Your position in society does not in any way eliminate that responsibility. And indeed, the assumption we might make of people having a higher position and consequently maybe more power, we might assume that they can be more effective. And that is not necessarily the case. The field is indeed so immense, the period so critical, the cause so great, the workers so few, the time so short, the privilege so priceless, that no follower of the faith of Baha'u'llah worthy to bear his name can afford a moment's hesitation. That God-born force, irresistible in its sweeping power, incalculable in its potency, unpredictable in its course, mysterious in its workings, and awe-inspiring in its manifestations, a force which, as the Bab has written, vibrates within the innermost being of all created things, and which, according to Baha'u'llah, has, through its vibrating influence, upset the equilibrium of the world and revolutionized its ordered life. Such a force, acting even as a two-edged sword, is under our very eyes, sundering, on the other hand, the age-old ties which for centuries have held together the fabric of civilized society, and is unloosing, on the other, the bonds that will still fetter the infant and as yet unemancipated faith of Baha'u'llah. So there's this twofold process of deterioration, or even destruction, if you want to call it that, of the old system, and the building up, the creation and establishment of a new system that, yes, we have referred to as a new world order, and that is the faith of Baha'u'llah, and it is undergirded by the faith of Baha'u'llah. We'll continue and finish this paragraph, and maybe we'll take a little break. The undreamt of opportunities offered through the operation of this force, the American believers must now rise and fully and courageously exploit them. I'll read that again. The undreamt of opportunities offered through the operation of this force, the American believers must now rise and fully and courageously exploit them. The holy realities of the concourse on high, writes Abdul-Baha, yearn in this day, in the most exalted paradise, to return unto this world, so that they may be aided to render some service to the threshold of the Abha beauty, and arise to demonstrate their servitude to his sacred threshold. This cause cannot be overstated. It cannot be, the importance of it cannot be overestimated. And not only to be a part of this cause and to accept the word of Baha'u'llah, basically, I mean, in no uncertain terms, means that on some level you have accepted the validity of these teachings. You've accepted the validity of these teachings. You've accepted the reality that Baha'u'llah is a manifestation of God who has come to fulfill previous predictions and prophecies, shall we say, and to establish the kingdom of God on earth. Well, that's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about. And Shogi Affindi is pointing out that, yes, it's a huge task, but it's something that we have been tasked to do. One moment, please. I had chosen, and it's right in front of me, there it is, a song. Let me set up my little drum machine here. I chose this song because basically it's relevant to today's message, to today's section that we're covering today. And I want to share with you a portion of the writing that this is actually based on. It starts out, the divine springtime is come, O most exalted pen, for the festival of the All-Merciful is fast approaching. And that's actually a reference to Rizwan. But in that quote, Baha'u'llah is addressing his pen. And yet the message is one that can apply to all of us, because it's saying, bestir thyself and magnify before the entire creation the name of God and celebrate his praise. Bestir thyself and magnify before the entire creation the name of God and celebrate his praise in such wise that all created things may be regenerated and made new. Speak and hold not thy peace. 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 Bestir thyself and magnify the name of God. Bestir thyself and magnify before the entire creation the name of God and celebrate his praise in such wise that all created things may be regenerated, and made new. Bestir thyself, bestir thyself, bestir thyself. It's like a message to all of us. In fact, there's that line in there that says, speak and hold not thy peace, bestir thyself and magnify before the entire creation the name of God and celebrate his praise. Speak and hold not thy peace. And I think I saw Hushang and Kim come in, so good morning to both of you. Well, that's 15 minutes, okay. We're going to read just a couple of more. Make sure I stay in front of this mic here. We're going to read just a couple of more paragraphs here before we end the readings for today. So Shogi Affindi goes on, after having quoted Abdul Baha, he goes on to say, a world, oh my goodness, again, 1938, written, so relevant today. A world dimmed by the steadily dying out light of religion, heaving with the explosive forces of a blind and triumphant nationalism, scorched with the fires of pitiless persecution, whether racial or religious, deluded by the false theories and doctrines that threaten to supplant the worship of God and the sanctification of his laws, enervated by a rampant and brutal materialism, disintegrating through the corrosive influence of moral and spiritual decadence, and enmeshed in the coils of economic anarchy and strife. Such is the spectacle presented to men's eyes as a result of the sweeping changes which this revolutionizing force, this force being, it's capitalized, so it's a reference to God, as a result of the sweeping changes which this revolutionizing force, as yet in the initial stage of its operation, is now producing in the life of the entire planet. So sad and moving a spectacle, bewildering as it must be to every observer unaware of the purposes, the prophecies, and promises of Baha'u'llah. Far from casting dismay into the hearts of his followers or paralyzing their efforts, cannot but deepen their faith and excite their enthusiastic eagerness to arise and display in the vast field traced for them by the pen of Abdul Baha, their capacity to play their part in the work of universal redemption proclaimed by Baha'u'llah. Did you hear what that phrase is? Universal redemption. Not just individual, not just personal, universal redemption. Every instrument in the administrative machinery, which in the course of several years they have so laboriously erected, must be fully utilized and subordinated to the end for which it was created. The temple, that proud embodiment of so rare a spirit of self-sacrifice, must likewise be made to play its part and contribute its share to the teaching campaign designed to embrace the entire Western Hemisphere. Perhaps we should stop there, and we'll pick this up next week. Again, the opportunities, no, the necessity of this cause have been so eloquently stated, certainly by the Bab who foretold the coming of Baha'u'llah, of course by Baha'u'llah himself, by Abdul Baha, the master, and of course by Shogi Affindi. And Shogi Affindi is making this case that is as relevant today as it was at the time of its writing, that we have to do this work. We have to do this work. Again, that, what is that? Universal redemption, for the universal redemption of mankind. And at this time, as always, we like to have some time where we can offer up prayers. Anyone who would like to offer up a prayer or a reading at this time. And of course, as always, we like to start out with our Camby's moment, followed by our Andy moment. So Camby's, do you have something to share with us today?
Sure.
Please.
قدوس یا حنان یا منان فرج لنا بالفضل والإحسان إنك رحمن منان إنك رحمن منان Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah. Thank you.
Thank you, Kambiz. Thank you. And now, Andy, if you'd be so kind.
God is one, man is one, and all the religions are one. Land and sea, hill and valley, under the beautiful sun. God is one, man is one, and all the religions agree. When everyone learns those three onenesses, we'll have world unity. When everyone learns those three onenesses, we'll have world unity.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you. I'm smiling because it made me remember that. That was one of the first songs I remember hearing when I started, studying the faith. Is there someone else who would like to share a prayer or a reading or a song? Well, at this time, if there is no one else who wants to share, I do have a reading that when we have time, I always like to share. Usually, I start out in this way. If I use this at all, it's for an opening prayer. But this is something I've read on quite a few other occasions. Well, I shouldn't say quite a few other occasions. And this is from Prayers and Meditations of Baha'u'llah. And this is a prayer by Baha'u'llah in which it's, I'll admit that one of the reasons that this appeals to me on a personal level, because it reminds me of my Christian roots, of course, and it is simply testifying to belief in God. And it says, God testifieth to the unity of his Godhead and to the singleness of his own being. On the throne of eternity, from the inaccessible heights of his station, his tongue proclaimeth that there is none other God but him. He himself, independently of all else, hath ever been a witness unto his own oneness, the revealer of his own nature, the glorifier of his own essence. He verily is the all-powerful, the almighty, the beauteous. He is supreme over his servants and standeth over his creatures. In his hand is the source of authority and truth. He maketh men alive by his signs and causeth them to die through his wrath. He shall not be asked of his doings, and his might is equal unto all things. He is the potent, the all-subduing. He holdeth within his grasp the empire of all things, and on his right hand is fixed the kingdom of his revelation. His power verily embraceth the whole of creation. Victory and overlordship are his. All might and dominion are his. All glory and greatness are his. He of a truth is the all-glorious, the most powerful, the unconditioned.
Tony, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Farah. Yes.
I'm so sorry to hear about Kristen. I'd like to say a healing prayer for her.
Thank you.
Thy name is my healing, O my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy. Nearness to thee is my hope, and love for thee is my companion. Thy mercy to me is my healing and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thou verily art the all-bountiful, the all-knowing, the all-wise. I hope she bounces back real fast.
Thank you so much, Farah. Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to share before we move on? Well, as always, I'll admit that usually when I say this, it's it's for the Facebook stream, but for whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe it's my phone, which I use to do the Facebook stream, and I don't know. It's not picking up internet right now, so I don't know what's going on there. But it's still a good idea to point out that this is a joint community effort. I'm glad that all of you could come into the Zoom and be with us here. It's not just me. It's, of course, as you know, it goes out through the clearwaterbaha'is.org website. And if you are someone who, again, wants to know more about the faith, maybe even though this is the Zoom, and I think I recognize every name up here, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's kind of part of the script, even though we don't really have a script. It's part of the thing we do. There are websites, websites that we can all go to have access to find out more about the faith. We can find out what's going on right now around the world with the faith, and we can read more and more about we can read the writings. So if one thing that as Baha'is we all kind of know is we love our books, don't we? Well, what if you don't have a certain book? Well, you can probably get access to it for free through one of these websites, probably Baha'i.us or Baha'i.org. Daryl always likes to point out BahaiTeachings.org, and of course, ClearwaterBaha'is.org. And I just want to express my own just appreciation for the support that that we get from all of you who choose to join, and again, our ability to send out what we do to the world through the internet, again through the support and the kindness of Clearwater Baha'is allowing us to stream through their website. I see John has joined us. So as always, as Daryl would always say, whatever you do this week, make sure you share the love. I think we'll keep it short this time. I feel a little weird without Daryl playing his instrument here. Let your vision, that's not right. There we go. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Oh. Have a good week, everyone. I have to remember, say it into the mic. We did a sound check earlier. That's why Jeremiah reminded me, you have to speak directly into the mic because apparently it doesn't pick up my voice. So everyone have a good week. Take care. We see John's little angel there.